Hi, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the VC Corner. It's been quite a journey so far. We're quite a few episodes in, but today I'm delighted to be joined by Reinder. He's a former Olympic rower, an investor, and founder of No Such Ventures. No Such Ventures is actually one of the largest deal-by-deal venture capital firms in Benelux, focusing mainly on 2 to 8 million euro initial investments and backed by over 150 angels. If you'd like to give us a quick intro to yourself, that would be awesome.
Of course, Ori, great to be here. Yeah, I founded No Such Ventures, which is now 6 years old, and I think could maybe be interesting to listeners because I think we are one of Europe's largest sort of deal-by-deal VCs, whereby we invest reasonable tickets between 2 and 8 million. And that sort of, I founded it coming from first a pro athlete background. Obviously, I'm most proud of that. Yes, I did study, but don't really care about that much. I rode at the Beijing Olympics 2008. And after that, in short, I jumped into private equity, then did M&A, so mergers and acquisitions, then jumped into venture capital. Didn't know venture capital before, loved it, but thought, hey, some things should be done differently. And I became COO of a scale-up. And then I thought, yes, now I have all the skills and tools of building my own VC. You have to back yourself a bit. I think I can do it better than most others. So let's go.
100%.
So that's me.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, your journey so far is quite unorthodox. I mean, from being an Olympic rower, competing in the Olympics to obviously becoming CEO of a firm and, essentially being a founder and founding your own VC, it's quite a journey so far. So, I mean, in terms of, yourself, your journey essentially through the VC and PE scene and, essentially investment scene, how has it been so far? I mean, what kind of the challenges do you face essentially making such transitions? Or learning curves that you kind of saw?
Yeah, nice question. So I often also get asked by people contemplating career changes or contemplating just working in the startup scale-up industry, sort of my advice. And I just notice I benefit so much from having these different experiences because when I finished Master Finance, I didn't even know what venture capital was. I jumped into
Okay.
private equity because everyone told me
Yeah.
that was great. And there I noticed, I love investing, but private equity industry, in my experience, is a bit more sort of arrogant than venture capital. They're used to owning the companies. They're mostly former bankers and consultants, not a lot of entrepreneurs to be found. It creates way different dynamics. So I landed there. I thought, hey, I love to work, but don't really love sort of the setting. The other firms we're talking with, everyone's super happy to be in private equity, and I thought, well, I'm coming from this rowing background, whereby my coach, with the megaphone, kills me, shouts me to death. That's a whole different, how to say it, position from I was there and then suddenly everyone's acting so cool. I jumped into M&A then because what I missed at private equity, I also thought it was conservative, moved slow. M&A, you run fast for your clients. Obviously, they chase you around. So I did that. But after more than 3 years, I thought, no, I love investing so much. And then I had a friend who already worked in venture capital who told me, mate, this suits you perfectly. You'll love it. And went to work for Dutch VC and indeed noticed I love it.
That's awesome. Obviously, it's quite a learning curve, quite a career transition. I mean, your approach, as an Olympic rower, obviously, very, very few people got to be in the position that you were in, essentially competing at such a high level. I'm guessing, obviously, it came with a certain kind of mindset that you have and certain kind of disciplines that you implemented, into your life. Do you think your essentially career as an Olympic athlete influences your decisions in venture capital and business in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. It really does. To be honest, I don't know sort of what part of me is nature or nurture, if you understand what I mean. Was I born with such a mindset, or have my parents influenced me, or have I influenced myself? But I notice, being an athlete, it's all about results. You can leave your ego at the door. I said, it's one-way traffic from the coach to us. I've seen a lot of rowers who couldn't really handle feedback, so they struggled
Okay.
there. And maybe also, just put super simple, I see a high determinant of success just having, how do you say it, confidence and personal belief. And I wasn't sort of lacking confidence that much, but then, and it sounds maybe super stupid, but then if you're Olympic rower, yeah, it helps your confidence. If people, now tell me stuff, I'll be interested in why they say it. But before, I was maybe sometimes a bit more attacked as a person, and I see that around me pretty often, that people still sort of need to prove themselves, and then they try to prove themselves in the investing arena. So then they are sometimes a bit, I don't know, yeah, can't handle feedback themselves, aren't really relaxed, try to put themselves on a pedestal. Hey, I'm this cool investor. So I think
Yeah.
my background as an athlete just makes it super clear and transparent that you only care about results. So how do you say it? For instance, we don't have titles at No Strangers. We don't. How do you say it? We're super easy going. Only focused on, as they would say in rowing, what makes the boat go faster. And maybe last thing also, I have to throw some rowing synonyms in here. I rowed in the eight, and there isn't a better team sport out there. So you've got eight imbeciles or whatever, you slot them in one formula with all different variables per person, and one thing slots out, that's speed, the boat speed. So if I sit like this in a boat, then you have to sit like that. Your breakfast is as important as mine, because it doesn't matter, because it's our speed is average of you and me. So you know teamwork is so mega important to me, and I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, no, and I think also I got to meet some of your team that you built at No Such Ventures early in the year, or actually last year now in 2024. Um, and everybody that I got to meet, it seems like you built such a solid team as well, in your new firm. So it's a quite a transition that you had there. I mean, in terms of parallels that you would draw between high level sport, venture capital, and I guess mindsets that you think are beneficial. I mean, we spoke a little bit about that kind of element, but in terms of parallels, would you say there's any kind of parallels between venture capital and high level competitive sports?
Um, good question. I'd say that you have to perform under high pressure and not stress too much. Chasing deals in short amount of time. Cool companies have got so much attraction from VC. So yeah, you need to be able to deliver. Also, I said act or make decisions in a very short time frame, which I think a lot of people don't fully understand yet. A lot of people tell me, yeah, I like startup investing, but then I know they want to take a long time before making decision. And I'm happy that these people exist to make 200
Yeah,
page consultancy reports, or or be auditors to check the papers. But as a VC investor getting so much inbound startups, you have to be comfortable in making very quick decisions. And also as an athlete, you can imagine how short most races are, whatever sport. So I'd say that I mentioned teamwork, and maybe also just the competition aspect. Like, there's competition out there. You don't really mind it. You like it, actually. And you also know, I need to focus on ourselves, not look too much at others. Maybe steal some nice ideas. Maybe look at their rowing technique a bit, and how they've maybe put their boat technically, and that's it. The rest, um, I say focusing on ourselves. Even we focus. We ask each other whether people sleep well. We make jokes if people come with these, at the
no
office,
bugs. Yeah,
or eat shit. Then you will hear it from us, because you're influencing us and not annoyingly. You won't be like, hey, shit, but just playfully.
yeah, 100%. What you mentioned, competition is healthy, right? You learn from I guess from failures and successes, right? Sometimes your failures will come from losing maybe something to a competition, but obviously you can improve on that uh, in the next one. Maybe similar to your career in running. You guys maybe had a race that didn't go as planned, but then in the next one you guys went and smashed it because you implemented certain things. I mean, that kind of leads us to, I guess, my next question. I mean, I'd love to know your motivations behind starting your own firm, right? You mentioned obviously from being an Olympic athlete, you went into private equity and also investment. You were part of a startup. What was, I guess, the trigger point that motivated you to establish, no such ventures? What was the background around that?
Yeah, good one. So, maybe two things. At one moment when I joined my third job at a venture capital firm. And again, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I think most entrepreneurs at some stage will will think, yeah, I think I can do this and I can do it better. And I was at this venture capital firm. I was sort of number two of the team. Yeah, and sometimes I
Okay.
thought when my boss would go left, I would go right. And we were funded by a rich family and some friends of theirs. I thought they were conservative, etc. I'm super happy that I worked there. I learned a lot, but I also learned many things which I thought I'll do differently. And the more you think that, the more you think, well, let's do it myself at some stage. Also,
Yeah.
because what I like about venture capital industry, you talk more with other investors. It's more collaborative than private equity because hey, you can invest 10% in the company and I can. So I had more contact with others, other Dutch VCs, and yeah, many of them I liked and admired, but also many of them I thought, I think I can be better than you and build a better team. So had I thought all of them would be amazing, I probably would have joined an existing firm. But I thought, yeah, I fancy my chances of going myself. And also, I experienced things, as I said a little bit in the beginning, also in the private equity industry, but you also see the venture capital industry. They're supposed to be investors that disrupt industries, but look at all VCs, 9 or 9.5 out of 10 VCs talk exactly the same
Yeah.
things. Yeah, I think they copy themselves too much. And I saw also I saw a lot of investors which didn't have a clue about numbers. I saw a lot of investors that was still thought they were a bit arrogant. Saw a lot of firms whereby the founders didn't share the upside, so the profit sharing with their juniors, like super old school behavior, I think. And then you have people saying, yeah, are you seed or Series A? And I'm saying, no, we just invest 3 million. Yeah, but is it seed or seed plus or Series A? And I'm like, are you crazy? I want to invest 3 million, like triple, double, double. You have these terms. You think, guys, maybe you shouldn't have been a VC for 10 years. Maybe you should have jumped into private equity and learned some things from that industry. Maybe you should work the startup, etc. So, long story short, yeah, I just experienced some things I thought should be done differently, and that motivated me to set it up my own way.
Yeah, look, and obviously, it worked out pretty well. You built quite an exciting, firm, such ventures, especially, being one of the biggest in Benelux. I've spoken though to a lot of founders, outside of venture capital and private equity, just essentially startup founders and also founders of venture capital firms. And sometimes the road to building your own firm isn't as smooth as you originally think. And so what I guess I'm curious, essentially the key challenges maybe that you faced, stuff that maybe you didn't perceive when you were like, I'm going to start my own firm, and challenges, that you overcome and obviously, led to where you are today.
Yeah, good one. Because yeah, for us it was also pretty difficult. So truth be told, we started deal by deal, sort of raising per company, not per fund, out of necessity. Because I knew of a company that wanted to raise 2 million. They wanted to do the deal with me, so that was our launching deal. But it's this classic, marketplace problem, chicken and egg. You need a deal and you need investors, but you don't have anything yet. And back then I was 33. I consider myself young. Maybe you're younger, Ori, but you come across smart. Anyway, but I was 33, and it's then maybe even uh, at 33 I could convince entrepreneurs I might be a good investor to them, but also needed to convince them I would have money to invest and to
Yeah,
investors, to investors, to LPs, 33 is sort of managing whatever, partner founder. Yeah, that's young. So first I had the deal, and with the deal under the arm, I hustled hard. It took me months to raise the money, and but in the end, it did. The deal was twice about to fall off the cliff, so yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster. But as you say, most entrepreneurs will see their first sales the hardest. For sure, that was for us the case.
100%. Yeah, it's that journey that really kind of makes it, right? Because if everything came easy in building your own firm, you'd be like, man, what's kind of going on, right? Because you learn, like we said earlier, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from the ups and downs, and that's what really makes you better in the long run. I mean, I guess kind of looking, from no such ventures aside, just kind of looking at, starting your own firm as, a company itself. What would you say is the most rewarding piece that you've kind of had from starting your own firm? Maybe it's like an experience, maybe it's something that kind of came through from, the initial launch of your firm, or maybe recently.
Nice one. Uh, Obviously, I love being in not in control that everything needs to be done by me. I think I'm actually more on the other side of being pretty said loose as a sort of manager, but yeah, that you can sort of carry out your own vision, and it's just cool. You think of the
Yeah,
name, you think of the logo. You're such an idiot that you wear. We've got the t-shirt, the sweaters.
yeah, it's a good feeling. Yeah,
I'm wearing no suspension socks. 4 out of 5 days, people making jokes, but I don't care. This is
yeah,
me. So I love it that it's your sort of also a bit your own identity. When I worked at the investment bank, I didn't mind being a soldier, but looking back now, this is such a different position. And obviously, I'm happy that we're doing well. Had we done shit, then yeah, I still would
yeah.
have been proud on what I did, and I probably would have learned way more than having jobs working for others. But still, yeah, it makes you proud building a team. Sometimes we're with 8 to 9 people now that I see them and think, yeah, I built that for a large part. I think they're very good. Nice that they were kind to you. Usually they're not kind, Ori, so that's well done on you. And no, and that we've really had some entrepreneurs choose us because I think they think we are yeah more relaxed, more sort of new school investors, and that yeah that also makes me proud. Last thing, we've invested 50 million, as I said.
Wow,
It's hard to raise that money from we're raising it all from
definitely
individual
is.
people, and man, most of them don't have experience with startup scale-ups. They find it hella scary. It's easier raising 100K for private equity or real estate because the chance of it going bust is way lower, and that's how many investors think. But yeah, we managed to do that, so it makes me proud. Thanks for asking the question because usually I'm just working, grinding day in day out, and I don't really reflect. So thanks.
No, 100%. And, being able to kind of wear your own logo and carry that kind of element with you is, an immense kind of pride for you. You built something from the ground up. It's successful, extremely successful. And, you got that kind of backing to say that, you built a great team and everything kind of in between. So, I mean, I guess one thing that I also want to find out, obviously, we spoke about the regions that you guys cover. Obviously, the Dutch landscape and ecosystem I think it operates a little bit differently from when we met in Amsterdam, and we kind of had a brief chat about it. But it operates differently to some other ecosystems around the world. So what I'd love to know is how do you see the Dutch ecosystem kind of comparing to other regions that maybe you've been exposed to or maybe you know about in that kind of sense?
Yeah, good one. Sorry. Yeah, I think the Dutch ecosystem is an interesting one because it's very open, sort of. A lot of nationalities, very open-minded. Obviously, I mean Netherlands and Amsterdam have got an image, or maybe for some other things, but it does show that we're a relaxed bunch, but also a very direct bunch. So I love doing business here. Mostly is straightforward. So I'm also used to working with Brits. Love the jokes. Do love the food. Love a lot of sports. But the courteousness, sometimes indirectness. Yeah, I love here. that yeah, we say it like it is, and it helps doing business. I think being straight to it. And maybe most
Definitely.
interesting, obviously, is that we're such a tiny country. I mean, our GDP per person is good, but tiny country. So obviously, all companies we invest in, they want to go abroad. It's number one on the agenda, and also what they ask us for on help and experience and whatever. So yeah, that really makes it very yeah important for us to also look across, I said, across borders. I think we've done one third of our investments now abroad, and we need to be more active or abroad because, yeah, uh, w- we hardly invest in Dutch companies, obviously, to just stay in the Netherlands.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I mean, this is just of my knowledge. Obviously, I'm pretty sure you're a lot more knowledgeable in this field, but the Dutch landscape, there's a lot of regulations, a lot of different dynamics in the market that come into play from obviously going abroad. So there's a lot of things that you guys probably have to get right in the Dutch landscape first before obviously making that transition, which is pretty much to every market that you look at. But in terms of those kind of elements, the culture, regulation, and the market, within the Netherlands specifically, do you think that maybe kind of influences your investment decisions slightly differently as opposed to maybe other markets that if you were to look at it?
Very good question. So, I mean, it's not that easy, for instance, to fire people here. Uh, some say we're reasonably leftist. Yeah, there are quite some regulations also. And there was a favorable tax. In the UK, there are more favorable tax incentives for investors, but also startup scale-ups. Netherlands is a bit, yeah, I say it, stingy on it. So that's annoying. But at the same time, we're used to it. We're used to if we want to get rid of an employee, that it's not that easy. You need to build a file, etc., and pay a couple of months. But that's for us normal. So we again need to talk with US investors. Someone else says, yeah, it's hard to to hire a lot of people there because you can't fire them. We're like, well, oh yeah, it's funny that you say it because in America you can fire someone, the same day, but it doesn't really matter to us. So I for us it's just yeah, per country indeed, so different that we need to think of, hey, we want to go to Germany pretty often. How does it work there? Different regulations. People are way different. They're a bit more conservative than the Dutchies. So often you have other go-to-market strategies, which sometimes would amaze you because we're neighbors. But yeah, I'd say we're used to that. But maybe compared to other larger countries, yeah, that comes into play later. Um, yeah, I said dealing with other cultures.
100%. And I mean, we're seeing quite a lot of changes happening right now in the market. Maybe you can kind of help me reflect on this on the Dutch landscape as well. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of changes that are coming, for various different kind of companies, whether it's AI, whether it's SaaS companies as well. A lot of tech companies are having to do slight shifts, in different markets slightly differently. I mean, within the Dutch landscape specifically, do you see like any changes or challenges that are going to come over the coming years that you guys are going to have to pivot towards? Or is it going to be, in your opinion, is it going to be more smooth sailing or is it going to be rough seas? How do you think it's going to kind of come about?
Yeah, good one. I, I'm biased, but I'll try to be objective. Obviously, I think a lot of foreigners. There are a lot of foreigners that live in Amsterdam and active in the startup scale-up scene, and they also just love the quality of living so much. And it sounds like a soft point, but it influences how happy they are at work. I can cycle anywhere in 15 minutes. Don't have these long commutes, for instance, and that's why I say it's a good sort of breeding place. A lot of people are happy to come here, so I don't see real talent shortages. But indeed, the national regulations aren't best, and there's some obviously some efforts in trying to loosen that, but I don't see that really improve in the next 3 to 5 years. So I'd say sort of status quo, unfortunately, whereby I would have loved for the industry to be helped by the government.
No, that's fair enough. Obviously, hopefully, time will tell, how everything kind of works. But I think the Dutch ecosystem is definitely one to keep an eye on for a lot of people from various different kind of industries and various perspectives. I mean, in terms of what we touched on earlier, I mean, you're working with over 150 angels in multiple different industries. I know obviously you guys focus on specific regions mostly, but in terms of being, I guess, industry agnostic in your investment strategy, how do you think that kind of benefits that element? So, it benefit your investment strategy per se.
Good one. Good one. We often have internal discussions on our positioning, as obviously every company should. And what I like about being agnostic is that you sort of don't miss chances. But I must say that also was influenced by my experience at the first private equity firm and the other venture capital firm. At both, I couldn't chase or do one investment because it was outside the investment mandate. And obviously, the mandate you
Okay.
communicate in advance, right, to your investors. Like, we think we will only invest here, and then they can slot you in their investment strategy and overview, and that's all fine. I understand the reasoning, but human networks are not always predictable. So, you know, a simple example: if a good drawing buddy of mine has created an amazing company in Romania, and it's maybe a different geo and or even a different sector we initially thought about, but I think it's a great investment, great company, and I know, because this is a competitive industry, he wants to do the deal with me or the investment because he trusts me and thinks I'm not an idiot. Maybe then I want to do the deal. I don't want anything to stop me. And I experienced it at both previous firms, and then I thought I want to have freedom. The number one goal here is to make outsized financial returns, do good investments. So that's why I love being a generalist, that we can, I say, pounce upon all chances, and also us not being a fund but being deal by deal. We have extreme flexibility. We can do any deal we want, and we just invite our investors. Hey, we love this deal. We put in our own money. Up to you whether you want to join. And so far, yeah, it's allowed us to do a couple of deals which otherwise probably we couldn't have.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that kind of approach. I guess 99.9% of VCs or PE firms that you speak to will have a certain kind of strategy, whether it's SaaS, whether it's B2B, whether it's this. And if anything comes up, around different kind of elements, they're going to be like, oh, no, it's not for us. But you guys are going to pounce and, take any opportunity that you think will yield a nice return, which I think is quite refreshing to see, essentially, especially in the investment scene, having somebody that is not afraid to kind of step out of their own area and invest in stuff that they kind of back and they believe in. So I mean, I'm guessing that kind of led to some great successes, like you mentioned, being quite diverse in that scene. Is there any kind of success that really stands out to you? From that kind of element that we invest industry agnostic.
Yes, a couple. So um, our first investment was only secondary, so we invested in current shares, not new ones. I know many VCs that can't do that. We invested in Greece, for instance, or did quite some investments abroad. Pretty sure, Greece or Eastern Europe, for that matter, wouldn't have been on our list immediately when starting out. We've invested in solo founders, whereby no one else at a larger company where no one else had one share. And I mean, if you and I get €1 for every VC article saying don't invest in solo founders, we'd be rich. Usually these are written by people, I say, that just need to write something. Maybe you haven't experienced yet. And
Yeah,
it's an amazing company, this solo founder. We've invested
that's
in a
awesome.
company. Yeah, thanks. We've invested in a company with a super, as I say it, as we say, dirty cap table. And it was already sort of a series A company whereby we invest multiple millions. And the founders, the two founders collectively had at around 25%. And then also all articles, no, we don't invest, blah, blah. And they're an amazing company because they were still incentivized, got some ways working around. They even spoke with other VCs that said, yeah, we didn't submit a term sheet because of the cap table, and you think, what's most important here? That you want to do a good deal, or that you have sort of a checklist, and everything needs to be green. But in looking at a company, nothing is perfect. But you've got a lot of checklist investors. You need to look at the whole, and then think, yeah, maybe this is shit, but I love this. Let's do it, or don't. And I just meet so many people that think, oh, this is a red flag. Let's not do it. Well, show me the perfect company. I haven't come across it yet.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people like to give the good war stories, but not the bad ones.
Yeah.
And kind of go through that. So, I mean, it's good, obviously, that you guys have, kind of both perspectives. I mean, in terms of evaluating a startup, one thing you mentioned just now, a lot of people go through a checklist. And I've heard this numerous times. I've heard of startups having, like a 700-point checklist for every startup they invest in, or, whatever it may be. Obviously, you guys take a bit of a different approach in that kind of sense. There might be some things that you still want to check off. Obviously, doing your due diligence and making sure there is an investable candidate for you guys to put money into. But how do you kind of evaluate that element? What is it for you that makes a startup stand out and be like, what, we want to back you, the founder or the company, and go forward with you? What really kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, nice one. We've got a we've got an 800-point checklist. You need to be
Oh,
thorough
really?
on this. No kidding. So what we what sort of shaped my thinking, we drag in um, external experts as soon as we can, as soon as it makes sense. So, it's an internal sort of KPI. At our second call of meeting, an external person needs to be present, which knows the industry and or type of product. And that was shaped also, or I said my experience shaped me there on the two previous investment positions I had, whereby, usually investors, granted, are reasonably smart people. Um, but then often that's also their downfall. They think, I was consultant, I was banker, or I was whatever. And we're smart enough, Ori and Reinder are the investment team, we're smart enough to crack this case. We'll come with a yes or no. And that's just super stupid. We're generalists. We see so many companies. So the first thing we want to do is get someone in with expertise in this market to complement our generalist view. And that helps us very much. So we drag in experts, and we also look at competitors, and I know a lot of VCs say they do it, and also know a lot of VCs that do it, but also know a lot of VCs they say they do it, but usually just only think for themselves. And I understand, because investing is nice, it's interesting to think about new industries and companies, but yeah, I'd say we're also backed. We're having 150 investors backing us, and they're happy to help. So yeah, we drag them in, and that really helps us indeed look at companies, because that's a pitfall of being a generalist, looking at so many industries, that sort of where to start.
100%. And I think that figure keeps coming up. And I think it's so impressive. Having 150 investors behind you is quite an immense thing to come to a startup, or, to an investment opportunity. Be like, we're backed by 150 investors. And also to the investors, there's so many people on board. There's a lot of trust that kind of comes into that. So going into, I mean, what we mentioned earlier, so you mentioned you mainly focus on ticket sizes between 2 to 8 million euros. What kind of led to that figure? I mean, obviously there's some rounds that could be a lot smaller, some, like we talked about, like, 100K, 50K, or whatever it may be, or some rounds that are bigger. How did you decide that kind of sweet spot for no such ventures?
A good one. Well, I have to eat myself. I have now 3 kids. They need to eat now. It's a joke, but also not. Whether you invest 500K or 5 million, I'd argue the work is pretty much the same. Sometimes even the 500K company takes you more effort in absolute terms. When investing, things are sometimes
Yeah.
less professional, but also there's still, a lot more is happening within the company. So you need to sort of help more. And the 5 million company usually is already a bit more, yeah, in stable waters. Obviously not stable still because of scale-ups, but yeah, you catch my drift. So the first investment was 2 million, and we just thought, yeah, let's not immediately go below that. Opportunistically, we've done a deal below, but we've also done a 6.5, and 7.5 million deal. So yeah, we just like We like the size. The companies are a bit further. It's not like, hey, we're already in Reinder, we've got this great idea, but it's already, we've got a couple of paying customers. So yeah, I like the phase that it's already a bit more proven. It's sizable in terms of the company and what we invest. And yeah, I'd say it. I would have also liked this work had we not invested 50 million, but 10 million. But then I'd 1/5 of the management fee, 1/5 of the upside, and my team would have been, petit. So
Much smaller, yeah.
I also think a bit also looking at our companies, or if we have discussions with entrepreneurs on how ambitious they want to be or not, because not all of them obviously are mega ambitious. Some just also want to build a nice company. We also say, well, if you believe you've got a better product than others, don't you want to see it, how you say it, distributed more? Don't you want to have it in the hands of more people? So that's what I like. Yeah, we could have had 150 investors, but they all invest 10K each. And we do some small deals. Well, that's cool. I
Yeah.
like it. But then for those investors, I hope they'll also grow bigger, because then you just have more firepower to spread your way of investing, which you think is a good way. So yeah, I hope that answers a bit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. You got your 800-point checklist. I'm just kidding. Uh, but we kind of touched, on the due diligence process earlier. Obviously, 2 to 8 million euro tickets, they're not small tickets. It's a sizable amount of money that people are investing. I mean, in terms of going through your due diligence process, how does that kind of look for you guys? What do you guys look for as maybe red flags, as maybe green flags from companies that are coming forward to you, or deals that you guys are sourcing? How does that kind of contrast?
Yeah, good one. So um, before term sheets and before sending out an offer, we usually do our own due diligence, which I think most do. But then bring in a lot of experts from our own network. We want to talk with clients. We want to talk with prospective clients or customers. So we really try to get in deep. We try to speak with competing or competitors, competing companies, people we know there. I'm looking through LinkedIn often. Who do I know well enough? That will spill some beans, and that helps us pretty well. And after signing the term sheet, yeah, we do more, or we do due diligence with externals. So we have people looking at tech. We do commercial diligence, financial management. So let's say I have a business/personal coach myself. This lady then also interviews the management team, say 1.5 hours per person, and I say sometimes talk after. She can see through people, I think, and sometimes legal DD. So I think all of that gives us also, a good image of the companies, while we also do that with I say just the best people we think are out there, usually contractors, who also, you know,
Okay.
are from P&L standpoint not that expensive, whereby often more traditional investors, they want a boutique or they want a name of a certain firm, and usually the quality is as good or maybe even less because they're older, less SaaS focused, but they charge 5 times as more. So yeah, that's how we go about.
No, that's awesome. And I think obviously that reflects, to the investors that you guys are working with. They see the kind of element and the backing that you guys go through to make sure their investments are as safe as they can be in a startup scene. Obviously, nothing's
True.
100% ever. But it's really interesting to see that. I mean, the angels that you mentioned that you're working with, you said a lot of them maybe have never invested in a startup. Maybe, they invest in other kind of elements like real estate, or whatever their main portfolio, main investment team kind of looks towards. So, I mean, how does that kind of compare for them? Obviously they have other investment opportunities in different markets, and potentially stuff outside of startups. So, how does it compare for them to be like, we're putting the money into a startup with no such ventures, and how does the return for them also kind of potentially look like compared to other investment opportunities?
Good question. So I also moaned a little bit about that point, that I think a lot of people are just so hesitant with what I said, or cautious with investing in scale-ups, and they often invest way easier in real estate. But yeah, broadly you could say we've got two types of investors: one that haven't invested in startups, scale-ups a lot yet, but they do have the appetite for it. And that also, usually if people have appetite to actively invest, meaning put money on one company, usually they're entrepreneurial themselves, and they've got an entrepreneurial network, whereby if you're a money manager, I know many money managers like passive investors, they have, they sometimes have trouble spelling scale up. They don't really have a network. You can ask them for help. It usually doesn't work. So yeah, we have to convince them hard. Usually it's personal trust also that people put down their money. And there are also investors that have experience with investing in startup scale-ups, and they now have the option to be an angel or to invest in a fund, and they think fund nice, but mega passive and also a bit boring. So for many that doesn't work, and others like angel investing and they also invest with us in the middle. But some also think angel investing. With my money, I invest in a startup and not a scale up because it no sense we pool the money. I have to do all the work myself. You know, well, we know and listeners know what being a VC, how much work you have to do, and also some understand, dare I say, that if you're an angel, what's your access to the best deals, right? If you are a well-known founder, yes, you will get the best startups knocking on your door. If you're just the average Joe with money, you want to angel invest, I applaud your motives, I really do. But I see so many angel investors send me a deck. Oh, I run into this company, and it's a shit company, and it's also probably their first or maybe second deck they ran into. And I tell them first have a look at 100 pitch decks, and then tell yourselves which ones are nice. So some either know or they learn during the process. Ooh, being an investor is nothing. Maybe I should invest with the professionals as far as we can be that or aspire to be.
That's really interesting. And obviously, you guys have a bit of a different approach, right? Like just you mentioned, they have the option of going into like a normal fund, and they have the option of obviously uh, being an angel themselves. So those kind of contrasts kind of vary. Obviously, when it comes to you guys approaching, investors on a case by case basis with your startups, right? Because obviously every opportunity is going to be slightly different. Maybe you have certain investors that more lean towards certain kind of opportunities, I'm guessing. So how does that kind of differ, sorry, from a traditional fund approach or traditional VC fund approach that you guys essentially differ to?
Yeah, good one. So, um, put plain and simply, indeed, with a fund in the beginning, you raise money, obviously, mostly on yourself as an investment team, and we raise money per company after signing a term sheet. So we send out a term sheet, obviously, if we love the company, but also if we've got, I said, conviction that we'll raise the money. And then after signing the term sheet with the company, we make a little book for our investors, telling them or showing them what the company is about and why we love it. And let's say it's around 20 pages. And then the investors basically just have the invite from us to join us investing. No is also a perfect answer. They can choose themselves. They don't have any prior commitment. And if they do invest, we'd like to know what amount. And yeah, we're filling up the investment tickets through that. I mean, the main downside from that is that we're raising per company and that it takes us a bit more effort. The plus is that we and the company have got a very interesting origin or source of money. These are all angels that specifically say yes to your company, and they usually overexert, or they invest a lot more in your company than they would otherwise invest in one company through a fund. So they really place a bet, and yeah, so they're committed, they're motivated, and and
That's
and
nice.
usually also, you invest in companies which match your experience more. So if we've got marketplace, people with marketplace experience, yeah, they'll like marketplaces way more. So that's only good for us if they then invest in marketplaces, obviously.
100%. And I mean, I'm guessing that's part of your approach when you play essentially the mix and match game, right? When you're matching investors to opportunities and making sure, that what you're going to present to said investors or, to said companies essentially is going to be the right investor and the right opportunity for them, kind of working, in unison across. Is there a certain process that you go about to, engage new angels or engage investors? Um, you know, to work essentially with no such ventures or to invest in certain companies? Or is it more case by case that you present a startup and you're like, it's a cool concept, we back it, you guys can kind of jump in if it makes sense for you too.
Good question, going deeper into it. And it's essentially the latter one, whereby everyone gets the invite, because I said you'll feel not so happy if an investor, if you miss a certain deal, if you've never seen it, because we fought for you, it's not your deal. But obviously, but on the other end, so we show it to everyone in our, sort of vetted investors in our pool. But obviously, we try to the ones which we think are extra interesting to the company. We try to give them a little nudge, like, hey, have a good look, please, because a lot of interesting people are so busy people. So
Yeah.
yeah, we need to give them a little nudge, and it works. Yeah, works reasonably well for us.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, that's one side of the coin, right? You got the investor, but then on the flip side, you obviously got the founders and the companies that are making these investments possible. I mean, in terms of yourself, when I came into the office, I quite loved this. You had all the people you partner with on your wall, which is quite a nice element. In terms of that kind of relationship side with the founders, how do you manage and maintain a good relationship with the founders and the companies that you work with after you guys made an investment? Is there any kind of steps that you guys take or any kind of elements that you guys follow?
Yeah, we have we have a lot of beers together. No, yeah, I think we are
Always
firm that.
helps.
Yeah, always helps. I think the difficult thing for founders is to how to get a good feel for the entrepreneur, sorry, for the investor, because all investors are smart, and in the the wooing phase up until term sheet or up until the deal, every investor is smiling and showing his or her
Yeah,
best self. But then you need to do a lot of references on how they really are as investors. Also, if things go sour, and trust your gut feel. So yeah, that's why also hiring my own team, I look for people that aren't just smart, but care about people. I know it sounds super soft. I just don't know right now. I have better English words for it.
yeah, it's
But
fine.
but also I think founders pick up on that. Whether you have these VCs with just a picture perfect story, but no, you sense no warmth. This is just, yeah, you tell me this and you tell it to 20 other
Yeah,
persons the same day, and do you really care? So I think that allows us to have reasonably good connection. We hope that if they can't solve something internally, we're the first persons they call. Usually two from our team, senior and junior, are I say it, yeah, attached. There's a better words, but placed on the company from our end. And yeah, most contact is literally WhatsApp calling. We have Slack channels, and it goes very ad hoc, very informal, which is maybe also a Dutch style, as I said earlier, making a joke about the Brits, But yeah, our style is informal,
yeah.
and it works for us. It creates trust, I'd say.
Oh, that's awesome. And obviously, I think you just touched on a point that I think is really interesting to maybe kind of dissect a little bit further. It's not just you're not there to just be there for to be an investor, right? You're there supporting the founders throughout their journey. I mean, in terms of that kind of support, how does it go beyond the financial element? I know you mentioned if they're in a a sticky situation or they have a problem, you're the first people they kind of come towards. What kind of elements have you guys faced in the past that founders kind of came to you with a certain kind of challenges or hurdles that they needed to overcome?
Good one, I'd say. you know, and a lot of VCs probably will say that it's on a broad range of topics. Usually it's revenue growth or internationalization, but it could also be employee participation, bank financing, or other financings, left and right. I think what is interesting about us, or what we try to do, is, as I also said a little bit earlier, that I noticed there are a lot of investors that think they're very smart, and also, no, I don't mean it that negatively, but also they are smart, most of them, but also that they need to be the person that gives this great advice. That founders ask a
Yeah.
VC, VC answers, great answer, and and
Yeah.
from us it's we try to challenge ourselves. What are you really good at? So let's say I've been an COO, specifically in an investor for a long time, and the M&A banker. So I'd feel comfortable in giving some advice about fundraising, because I've did it for multiple years. day in, day out, COO, maybe a little bit, but it was also one specific company. So shouldn't overestimate, or I say it, my experience there. So the first thing we think as investors is how strong is our network and do people want to help us? Because that's often what we do. If there's something about pricing, we think who are the best people to help us with. Or if I say it, as I said, we try and get people from competitors who work at the bigger firms. They get a salary. They don't. Their feeling for the company is a bit less. They don't mind thinking along with this cool startup if we ask them. So, and that creates way more value than us trying to come up with a great answer. So yeah, are also there, let's say in our due diligence process, but also being a shareholder, that's our go-to move. Like, who do we know that da da da, and yeah, I like that approach.
That's awesome, and that obviously gives benefits to both sides of the coin, like we mentioned, right? The investors, the founders, and it kind of creates a kind of innocent, if you will, an ecosystem for them to kind of trust and rely upon you guys. That if anything sticky comes up, that you guys are kind of there to back them. I mean, putting aside obviously the founders and the inventors and investors, sorry, and looking at no such ventures, I think you mentioned, you touched on it a little bit, and I think we spoke about it in Amsterdam very quickly. But you have a quite a unique profit sharing approach. I'd really love to kind of understand a little bit more about that, because you don't really tend to see that in pretty much most VC firms that I've come across. So I'd love to kind of understand how that kind of model works, and how does it really differ from a traditional typical VC.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, so you've got the external part and the internal part. The external, as we're deal by deal, our investors pay sort of profit or the carry per company and not per fund. So um, that's different because let's say if the companies go bankrupt in our portfolio, then they don't sort of lower the profit of the ones that do well. On the plus side for our investors, their management fee, they only start paying us the standard 2% management fee of what they invest, which is used for P&L, salaries, etc. From the day they're investing, whereby at a fund you already start paying it from day one, and there's been zero investments made yet. So there's a plus and a minus. Internally, our internal profit sharing, yeah, I'm most proud of that, or proud or happy, because we are mega progressive in how we share. And I say we, but it's mostly me, to be honest, because I decide also a bit how we share it. So everyone from our team invests from day one, also the first year starter. And I put quite some money on that. Our percentages are, yeah, top 1%, 2% on how sort of horizontal they be. And that also, from my own experience, the two investment positions, blah, blah. So much in the Dutch investment scene, but also abroad, carry is being distributed so scarcely, and you get a little bit after so many years. You need this principal title, blah, 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 and then 3 years later down the line, they promise you a bit more breadcrumbs, and I absolutely hate it. And I already also knew, I'm jumping ship because, hey, I'm way better at what you are offering me. So it's also my belief that, yeah, a lot of smart people will be investing. Yes, yes, yes. But the best will jump ship if they don't get enough. Um, and also, it doesn't feel like their company then if they don't get part of the profit. If we do well, if it goes to the bosses. So yeah, I'm very I give a lot there. I also like it that people then really are going for it, and I have the feeling and the hope that the best people will want to work here, the best investors, but also the most entrepreneurial investors. Whereby otherwise, if they not get enough, they think, "Hey, F you, I'll do it myself." At some stage, which I don't want. I want people to work here 10 plus years and build no such ventures out.
No, that's awesome, and obviously that's a big motivator for people, right? They feel part of the vision, part of the journey as well. When you're like, I think you gave the analogy earlier. You were a soldier uh, in the previous company. There's not that big kind of drive and motivation. But obviously, the team that you're building, the guys and girls that you have working for you, are going to have that kind of extra boost, which is something that I think is awesome to see. You don't really see it in many companies, let alone VC or investment firms. I mean, we spoke about this, and I can tell, you're immensely proud of what you built, and you should be at No Such Ventures. How does the kind of profit sharing model really align, with the investment strategy and philosophy that you have at No Such Ventures?
Yeah, good one. Well, I think it aligns very well because, as I said, sort of we care about people. This is not here a sort of a numbers game, or not trying to become as rich as we can, as fast as we can. So I say it aligns with who we are as persons, and yeah, as a firm, that we want to have commitment, which is super high. No VC will say they don't want a committed team, but yeah, it's, there are differences in commitment. The other day I wrote a bad little LinkedIn post bashing some other investors, and inviting entrepreneurs to ask the VC they're speaking with, will you invest yourself? Because a lot, quite often the answer will be no. I'm too junior, or I'm too whatever. Even, or some could even be principal, not invest. And then also ask, how much would you invest yourself of the total? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs will be disappointed, and they should be. And then they know, ooh, the firm that's going to invest, apparently the founders and managers are pretty old school. They're not very into sharing. They're hierarchical, and I need to have opinion about it. You can love it, being invested by a conservative VC, but you can also not like it. And also, obviously, the founders we invest in really like that everyone puts his or her money in. It's from our team, and that we, yeah,
That's awesome.
we back them, and it's not sort of just a salary job here, and 2 years later I'm out. So yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. And I mean, kind of going, sorry, what you built, I mean, that's perfect in terms of that element. Everybody gets a slice of the pie. What I want to do, I want to kind of go back a little bit one point. I'd love to find out. There's something I wanted to ask you, but completely skipped over it by accident. Um, in terms of mentorship and leadership within startups, so looking essentially at the founders again and looking at that kind of side of things, how important is it for you to see, a strong leadership team, strong mentorship element that comes into a startup that you haven't invested in yet, but you're thinking of investing in? Of
That's I like the question because, so it depends how early you invest. I get it. If
course.
again, if you and I start a company tomorrow, people will look at you and me, and that's it, and they should, and they also obviously are interested in the idea, but for a very large part they should look at us. Now, the companies we invest in already should have some traction, because we invest a couple of million for
Yeah.
minority stake, and we don't invest it for Ori and Reinder with this idea. Although obviously you and I would raise a great seed or pre-seed round,
100%.
great first round. We would. So then now comes my question, because I see a lot of investors or former colleagues that want a world-class team. I get it, but let's say there's a team with, as we say, a company that already has some traction, and you have a copy of that. So two companies with same amount of attraction. One company's got a world-class team, and the other one's got a reasonable team, like a seven. You could argue you want to invest in world-class team, but you could also argue you want to invest in reasonable team and improve that team, because apparently the world-class
Yeah.
team, you know, couldn't have created more traction than they created. So for us, if you understand what I mean, it's not indeed checklist investing here. Oh, the team is not good enough. No, 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 no. What traction were they able to show in the previous periods, years? And what does it say about them and the market opportunity? Maybe if we bolster the team, because we've got a say in that, and you'd hope as an investor you've got a strong network with people that are dying to work at nice scale ups, and you think they're very good, that we can strengthen the team, and maybe traction could pick up even more. So long story short, yeah, I hope not to give this then an answer. Yeah, we want to invest in great teams. No, it's a combination of what they've shown so far and how much the teams can be better. So there's no, as I said, also with solo founder, with founders not having a lot of shares, we're very open to looking at uh, at different situations, and especially looking at what can be done better instead of what the current situation is.
I know, and I think that's really interesting. So you gave the analogy, obviously, of if you have a team that's 7 out of 10 and a team that's 10 out of 10. I mean, the team there, I think it's a quite an interesting element to look at because a team, 7 out of 10, there's a lot more improvement, and they haven't hit maybe the ceiling of where they're going to be, but a team that's 10 out of 10 might already be at that kind of ceiling. So there is that kind of contrast and that kind of element for investors or firms to obviously kind of take that into account. And obviously, we spoke about the journey of investment. We spoke about the journey after investment. I mean, I guess the last step, and ultimately the end goal is the exit, right? Where essentially that kind of turns into liquid cash and where the profit essentially kind of comes from. How do you go about developing an exit strategy for an investment that you have? Because I'm guessing different kind of investments are going to have different strategies and different elements that you guys think about going through it.
Um, yeah, I think we are reasonably relaxed on the exit strategy, meaning that we just first want the company to go for 5xing, 10xing, and if you make that, we'll be happy either way. We all know strategic, so let's say large competitors, large goes, because we'll usually pay more than financial buyers, private equity. But yeah, do you grow times two or times 10? So for us, we don't focus a lot on exits, mostly just on building company. And then later on, we usually just determine together with management what the best timing is. Because if a company grows but at some stage stalls, usually management gets demotivated a bit because they're stalling. Things will stay the same maybe for some time. And also for us, why do you want to stay shareholder if the company is plateauing? So then you want to maybe sell before, and if a company goes well, then probably management likes the new experiences, the company growing further, and obviously we do as well. So yeah, we're usually in tight alignment with management, sort of on timing, and then yeah, if we sell, then there are quite some people here that, next to having worked at a startup scale-up, have also worked at M&A firms or private equity. So we've got some experiences, we think, on how to position yourself for an exit and to how to run a good process. So then we hope that that experience helps us a little bit.
No, that's awesome. And obviously, it's quite a journey kind of going through those elements and actually quite a journey that you guys have been on, in those such ventures and, yourself personally throughout, your, career, essentially, Olympic athlete, sorry, and then private equity and obviously VC now. I guess one thing that I'd love to know from a personal perspective to yourself is, a lot of people probably have been influential in your career so far. Maybe it's a piece of advice, maybe it's something that they kind of came up with that you really took on board. What would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned throughout your career, essentially? Looking at, let's say, maybe venture capital, or the biggest lesson that you learned uh, influence your future kind of decisions or strategies going forward?
Nice one. And before sharing some thoughts, I have to say, or you're too kind, what you said before, you have to send me your bank account details for those compliments, and I'll pay you accordingly. Um, yeah, lessons learned. Obviously, a lot of lessons learned also from people who sometimes, as I said before, sometimes you disagree with things, and then that also shows you a lot. So you don't always have to see, heroes or legends do something in a way you think, well, I'm going to copy that. Yes, I have experienced that, but also sometimes the other way around, like, oof, that's
Yeah,
interesting behavior, and I think it should be done way differently. I will give a little shout out to my dad. He might not be listening. Maybe my mom would. They're divorced now, so she might not like hearing this, but it doesn't matter. I think second year in study, I wrote a lot. Didn't really pay a lot of attention to study, and but I wrote reasonably well. Was doing well, and at some stage I came home, and my dad just took me apart and said outright he was disappointed in me, and that he would stop backing me financially. And this is a hard move, and I'm the oldest of five kids. Still to this day, I'm sometimes wondering, would he have said this to all five kids, or would he maybe know that I could handle this message? But it was pretty hard because yeah, my father looked up to him,
of course.
and it had the desired outcome. I'd say next year I crushed it. I wrote as fast. I wrote even harder, and I I got, I think, 1 year and 1/3 of university year points, and just had such a productive year. So I bounced back and also noticed that, or learned a bit, life, that sounds super cliche. I need better English words, but life really is what you make of it. Also rowing taught me
100%.
that every year on this this annoying rowing machine, which gives you a lot of pain, but you see the amount of watts you put out. And some stage you're gonna notice everything influences this. Your sleep,
Yeah.
your food, your everything, literally everything. So yeah, don't. So obviously, I think about what I eat because it influences how good I am as an investor, as a dad, as whatever. So sort of that showed me a little bit. I can't complain about everything. Life is what I make of it, and that sort of maybe don't want to sound it like a cheesy answer, but it was really the case for me that it showed me. Yeah, that I have only myself to look at, and that just helps me tremendously.
No, that's awesome. And obviously, uh, kind of lessons that you learn in life and stuff that influences you, shapes, decisions that you made in the future, right? And kind of went from there. I mean, kind of going off the back of that, this is again, like you mentioned, maybe a cliche question for me. Um, but I'd love to know maybe like a piece of advice. Anybody that was influential in your life. I know you mentioned your dad. That was a big lesson that you learned. But is there any kind of piece of advice that anybody gave you that really stuck with you? Like it could be like a small 5 word thing that someone said to you, and you're like, "Wow, I'm gonna take that on board and kind of ride out with it."
Um, wow, good one, because not one thing sort of is coming out. I think a couple of things. One boss really showed me that people just love positive feedback, and not saying negative feedback, but if I want to see a certain behavior of yours, I'll just tell you that I really like it if I see you doing this or da da da. Where versus I see you're not doing this very well. No one likes to hear that. And if I say it first
Yeah, of
thing, you want to
course.
live up to it. Really, it looks simple, but it really, yeah, really works. And maybe sometimes when you become a bit older, you start seeing things differently. I know at the investment bank, I was such an eager beaver, and then a boss told me, "Life is a marathon, not a sprint." And I thought, "Thank you, old man, but I'm sprinting till I die. Just try and stop me." Now
Yeah,
I've got a little bit older, three
yeah, I love
kids.
that.
Uh, I want to work out. I want to have social events. So now I notice I need to balance it all. I'd say it. I'm
Of
here in
course.
for the long run. I want to do Nose Venture for 20 years. I'd sign my signature right now. So, yeah, some things sound cliche and you need your own, I said, yeah, feeling to it, if that makes sense, to certain piece of advice you get.
No, 100%. I think that's quite a cool analogy. Life isn't marathon or a sprint, but I'm sprinting all the way.
Yeah.
Quite like that. Uh, I mean, in terms of one of the things actually that's really cool, and I'd love to get your reflection on it as well. I know you mentioned that you get to invest in all opportunities that come across. You're industry agnostic. Has there been ever a missed opportunity that you were like hesitant to invest in, or you didn't go on board with, that you're like, you know what, I should have done that in retrospect?
Yes, I have. So, and also, I'd say downside of the deal by deal model we invest in by not having capital sort of committed yet at the beginning. So now we have a bigger platform. We've got a bit more investors. When we were smaller, there were a couple of real high risk, high venture deals with high multiples or high valuation. And I really like the company. I've experienced it twice, but especially once, I was like, oh, I just love to invest, but I don't think, for instance, it was 20 times revenue or 20 times ARR multiple valuation. And I think I still wanted to do it, should have done it, but I thought, how am I going to convince my investors? And as I said, it was like 3 years ago, maybe even four. So I knew I couldn't place it. And then later on, I was like, oh, should I still try to do it and just tell people, yeah, yeah, call me crazy, but let's talk in a couple of years. So sort of didn't go for it because I also didn't want to run the risk of not placing the deal, saying, yeah, we'll invest 2 million, but then only raising 1 or 1.5. So I
Of
missed
course.
out on a very good company there. two, but one really crazy.
Yeah, I mean, these things happen, right? You get the best side of some things, and obviously some things you're like, you know, I wish I could have made it happen. But that's the journey, you know, how it goes. That's pretty much the ups and downs that you kind of go through, and you learn from them. And hopefully, you know, the next one, the next maybe unicorn that comes about, you're on board, and that kind of how it works. I mean, one last question, I guess, to round it off. I mean, I know we I go back to that analogy. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but you're sprinting forward. I mean, when it comes to healthy, you know, work-life balance and making sure that, you know, you get, like you mentioned, you get time to socialize and those kind of elements. Obviously, running your own firm is, I'm going to guess, quite time consuming, right? There's a lot of time that you invest, you know, yourself and outside of work as well. You probably pour quite a lot into it. How do you juggle that kind of element? How do you draw lines between certain things, or do you not draw lines at all?
Not draw lines at all. Yeah, well, in the past, I drew less lines. Some people or friends called me maximizer because I just wanted to, go balls out on everything. And obviously, it helps if you're young and your body can handle more and energy levels, etc. But at some stage, also with responsibilities of kids is a clear example, but also, I think more about health. Might sound cliche, but it just really works. I love exercising. I notice, people should try out things for themselves. I notice if I exercise a bit in the morning, you don't even have to go crazy. Just I do some exercise in the garden, 20, 30 minutes. I feel amazing the rest of the day.
Yeah,
I'm not tired of it because I also don't kill myself, but I feel just so strong. And maybe sort of end of the day, another day, I work out, I think, once a day. Then I just really do what I want, and I can sort of kill myself because, yeah, usually then you have dinner, and then at the evening you still work a bit. So that works for me. I experience with food, or I mean, so I experiment with food. Sometimes I fast, works for me. Sometimes I don't fast. I listen a bit to my body. We have an au pair now, to take care of the kids. Before I was so busy when I was with the kids, I was still opening my cell phone, trying to be productive, and I did both
yeah,
things mediocre. So now I have an au pair which takes their care of the chores, the more simple work, and then that allows me to work a bit more. And then if I'm with the kids, to really to have quality time always. So I'm pretty big about delegating, very big about delegating. I think it sounds tough maybe, but what would my hourly rate be? Looking at what I earned last years, it would be pretty high. So should if I spend an hour on something, maybe someone else should do it, who I can pay. And it sounds maybe, I don't know, luxurious, or I don't want to come across arrogant, but it's just thinking, where am I best at? I'm best at being a VC at Nose Ventures and being a dad, or I'm not sure I'm best, but I want to do that. So all other things, I'm mega critical. Whereby other people I still see doing things which they think they should do, but then I ask them, are you really happy in doing this? And think, no, sort of, and then you should you should just have your groceries delivered. You should have your house. You should have a cleaner. You should have a someone. You can have someone in your home with the kids while I'm still there, but I'm playing around and she's doing other things. So yeah, I said I don't want to come across maybe arrogant. I understand I'm in a nice position that I can afford those, but also when I was younger, I could have still thought about, hey, how to spend my time. Um, yeah, to create something for myself. I love that you're doing the podcast. You're thinking about what do I like and what helps myself. Versus, I've been in so many commissions whereby someone asks you to do that, and you're like, okay, and later on you think, was this really a hell
100%.
yes? Was this a hell yes? No. If it's not a hell yes decision, then it's a hell no, and get the hell out of here. So yeah, I've been better at making choices. Long answer, sorry, mate.
No, that's fine. I think what you mentioned, you know, time delegation is so, so important. But no, I think we touched on so many points, and I think there's so much insight that people can obviously take from our discussion just now, and a lot of things that people are going to find new, right? No Such Ventures operates in quite a unique way, which is really interesting, I think. So everybody can obviously find my LinkedIn, can find Rainer's LinkedIn below. I've also put a link to No Such Ventures, and I really urge if you're a founder or investor to get in touch with them. They're a really cool company. And that's pretty much been a wrap. Thank you very much.
Nice. Yeah, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
No worries.